Okay, here we go. We're live streaming, folks, and I really appreciate your
I
time.
don't
And
think are we live
No
streaming yet?
audio.
I'm not getting it yet.
oh, it came up on my end.
Oh, okay.
Did
Oh yeah,
anybody
we
get
are.
anything
I
that says
saw it. Yes.
we got it, Tyler?
Yes.
Okay, here we go. Press the button and pull the chain. Out comes the little brown Zappa Zoomy train. So good to see you people today to celebrate Frank Zappa's 85th birthday for the ZappatistaSalon #5. Frankie with the freakin fringe on top. 85 years of the big note. So first thing we're going to do is take a deep breath in together as one group. 1, 2, 3. And release. Okay, that's being conscious, man. I appreciate that. Now we're going to do what Frank taught us to do. I don't like the word complain, but we're all going to groan and complain together. Okay, 1, 2,
Whoa.
3. Ah,
Oh, fuck.
Oh, give me a break. You know, it's just like what the.
okay, so yeah, that's it. Mumble. So I want to dedicate this time together to two
Oh, crap.
people.
I'm losing
Zach,
audio. That's crazy.
Zach, you can tell us, is Thomas Nordegg doing okay?
Yeah, Thomas is doing great. He obviously, if some of you haven't heard, Thomas was involved in a motorcycle accident where he was making a left turn and someone wasn't paying attention and they hit him, and so he was
No
hospitalized.
sound.
Um, he should we sort out Lewis's sound or should I keep talking
No,
or?
keep talking, and
Okay, okay, okay.
we got a summary
Yeah, so
message.
Thomas is doing great.
Keep talking.
He had his surgery and it was not too severe. It was on his hand and his arm. He's recovering. There's so many people in Los Angeles that are taking care of him and supporting him, and he seems to be doing great. So yes,
Good.
if you're
So
dedicating
I
this
just
to Nordegg, that's great. He would appreciate that.
yeah. Um I
I'm getting no sound.
yeah. Don't talk. Don't tell us. There's nothing we can do about it. Okay, we don't want to waste any more time.
That's great news about Thomas.
Yeah, very good.
That's great news.
Yeah.
I was just hanging with him for during those shows at the Baked Potato at Halloween. I was hanging with him for a lot, and so it must have happened shortly after that. Zach, I don't know
It
what
happened
happened.
that night.
That
What?
night.
Yeah. Both I saw Thomas also at that concert for the first show, and then I believe he was hit after the second show.
Oh my.
And no, he has a friend that's been helping him and driving him places and doing all that other stuff. So no, Thomas is doing much better. It was not an intense surgery at all. It was no, he's definitely on the
Good.
mend and is in good spirits.
Good. Thanks for the update, Zach. And we also want to dedicate it to Eric Dugdale, who's a dear friend of mine who passed away. And we're going to dedicate this show to all the Zappa people who passed away recently. But let's just run down that list right now. Ed Mann, Tom Fowler, Mark Volman, Art Fine, Elliot Ingberg, Roy Estrada, Alex Domchowski, who is known as Erroneous to all us, and Marks and Coy. If I'm missing anybody, raise your hand and let us know. But Eric Dugdale is really special. His dad built Lake Shrine here in LA where Elvis meditated. George Harrison and Tom Petty, they all did their guru's spiritual thing there. And what we do here is called live oral history. So we all go to books and various sources to study Zappa history. But there's a thing called live oral history. And this is what Eric told me. Oh, I went to Tom Mix's house where Frank lived in Laurel Canyon and went to a Black Panther fundraiser that Frank was raised. Now, has anybody ever read that or heard that except from me? because I passed on from Eric. Was it true? Well, I sure hope so. I believe Eric, and he's a good solid. He was a good solid human being. In fact, he was one of the best historians of LA history. So it's similar to Gary Gutman, who's participated in our salons before. When I told him this great new bass player we hired, and I'm doing an interview with Greg Cohen. He played with Tom Waits for 20 years. He played on 33 John Zorn albums, and he played with Don Preston and Randy Newman and a million other people. I said to him, Gary read, and I said it in one of my past rants, that Captain Beefheart walked in the middle of a Tom Waits recording session and just looked at him and went, Tom, wait. Now, if you're into Waits at all, you know from Swordfish Trombone, self-admitted, Waits became a Beefheart clone, a Beefheart wannabe. All the power to him. He's a great musician, great player, and but it is true. So it was like Beefheart. Now Gerry typed back and he goes, "Is that true? That sounds like a Gerry bullshit story." So that's what's called live oral history. You don't know if you want to believe it or not. Thank you for raising your hand, Zach. You're on mute. Go ahead.
I would just like to say, Gerry, that I'm adding that to my list of quotes and hot takes from you, along with Prince as my favorite James Brown impersonator. So that's so funny.
Yeah. And we're going to go into that. So it is this live oral history thing. And to hand it over, hold on one second, Simon, but Andy once told me that he heard that Frank Zappa said, all my songs are hits. If you Google that, it won't come up. And now AI is pretty good at scanning through every fucking thing about Zappa on the internet, in every book and everything that's ever been printed. The problem is, in no hotshot young Zappa kid who knows IT up the yin yang has done this yet, is take every oral Zappa interview and tape, TV, radio, and transcribe them. So if we want to know every time Frank mentioned the word hologram, we can type that in and it will show up on the printed media of Zappa, but it won't show up on the audio. So, I mean, our youngest member here is Andreas. So he like Zach and Andreas are our youngest members. I haven't even introduced our members yet. Oh, okay. We got Andy, we got Tyler, Simon, Kahlil, Andreas, Zach, and Lewis. So thank you all for coming. So anyways, that's what we're involved in. Sorry to go on and on. Like this one lady at one of my events says, shut the fuck up. Let's get going. So the last thing is these salons, and Tyler, thank you for hosting them and hitting all the right buttons so they're on YouTube forever. This is officially called the Zappa Bitch Club, but that sounds a little, like not correctly proper wording in this day and age. Now, the word bitch is what Frank taught us. It's called critical thinking, so that you can complain or kvetch. So, the funny thing about the word bitch, as the word meaning the word complain, anybody know what year it came out to change the meaning of the original etymology on the word to mean complain? It was like 1930. That's like 10 years before Frank is born. And then in 45, the US Army dudes were using it as slang. So it's like whining. It's like Kahlil saying, I don't want to do no tetrads. And I like that, because what it is what Zappa taught us is to be critical thinkers. So that's
The bitch club.
Say it again, Simon.
The hot little bitch club.
The hot little bitch club. Yeah. So that's the true phenomenon, is how do we proceed in talking about Zappa without going, oh, he does this wrong or does that wrong, or do we be fanboys and like Frank can do no harm, you know?
Oh.
So that's a challenge right there. So here's the first round robin I got for you guys. If you haven't heard the WCBN Ann Arbor, Michigan interview with Frank from like 67, you got to hear it. It just surfaced in recent years. And he says two things in it that are unbelievable. He says, one, God is alive, the church is dead. The other thing he says in this interview is, all my songs are poetry. So we know that Frank wrote some poetry early on, but he never really says his songs are poetry. He doesn't, that sounds too like airy fairy for Frank. He's a lyricist and he rhymes words. And in a way, that's a form of poetry. And I'll get to the question. Here it comes. It's like T.S. Eliot said, poetry is outing your inner dialogue. How do you get your inner voice out? Well, you do that through poetry. That's T.S. Eliot. So Frank has a line, you don't want to see what's behind my eyes. So is he literally contradicting himself, or what's going on there? Because he's saying, hey, I'm outing my inner dialogue, but you don't want to see it? What kind of command is that? Or what kind of suggestion is that? Simon, we'll start with you. What is Frank saying to you when he says, you don't want to see what's behind my eyes?
Well, I think context is king. I mean, you got to think what the context of that phrase is. It's don't you be terrified, right? And it's Joe entering the world of the appliantology people.
Mm-hmm.
So that would have to be, I think, focused in that context, because it also says some people might, what is it? You might be surprised that you find out where you go, sort of thing. So I don't necessarily think that can be taken out of context with something else he might have said about poetry and, in another context. I mean, just on the poetry thing, I think he's just saying that he's not speaking entirely in prosaic terms, and you have to kind of interpret what he's saying, or you have to think about it in a wider sense than what the literal words perhaps mean. I don't think he's trying to rival T.S. Eliot or come up with something that's that he would, that future generations will hold up as poetry. But I think what he's doing is artistic, and I think that's the point he's making there. That would be my take on it.
Really good, Simon, because it is context always, but that's the treat of us and words, is that we can pull them out of context, because the line after that, which you were referring to, is some people think that if they go too far, they'll never get back to where the rest of them are. I might be crazy, but there's one thing I know: you might be surprised at what you find when you go. The fuck is that? Okay, Zach, you're up. What is Frank saying to you when he's saying you don't want to see what's behind my eyes?
I would say that, Frank is kind of the king of saying the quiet part out loud that everybody else is too afraid to maybe say publicly. And I think that maybe that's what he's referencing when he makes a statement like that. I mean, I'm sure we can all agree that Frank is the one that skewered all sides, all walks of life, all types of people, all beliefs, all music scenes, all everything. And I feel as if this just relates to that. And, I think there were certainly a lot of people at the time who did not want to see what was behind his eyes, because literally what is behind his eyes? That's his brain, right? I mean, so he's also, what is it? Well, what's the ugliest part of your body? I think it's your mind. I mean, I feel as if those two statements could be easily linked as well. And so I think he's just saying that I don't think there's an avenue for my thoughts and my truth, and what you're going to hear it, and you have the choice to listen to it or not.
Or not. Really good. Go
Well,
ahead.
because I'm assuming this quote is from the 60s, or
No, you mean
Joe's garage.
Oh,
Okay.
oh, it's Joe's Garage. Oh,
You,
okay.
you
Well,
mean, oh, the song quote is from Joe's Garage.
oh,
Yeah.
it's Joe's Garage. Oh,
Yeah.
so it happened later. Okay.
It
Well,
is, it's actually called A Token of My Extreme.
oh, that's in a token of my
It's
extreme.
it's a weird thing because there's two things. It's a token of my extreme and a token of what's the other one? There's a video. You're his extreme. So there's two projects he did, one a song and one a video. Okay, hold on, Andreas. Okay, go ahead. You're done, Zach. That was beautiful. Go ahead, Andreas.
Yeah, I listened to Token of My Extreme again, and I think he's talking to a different kind of audience. I have the feeling in Joe's Garage. I mean, for me, always it was Joe was the alter ego of Frank, and then there is like when Frank is talking as himself, like the introduction, you don't want to see what's behind my eyes. It's like the subconsciousness. What's interesting is the song goes then into Stick It Out, which is a part of his genesis. So all this connected, what you said from the 67 interview where he said God is dead, and that his music, I think he also means his instrumentals that are poetry. I would not say his words are poetry. They are funny stories, but his music, how he presented, is poetry. And
His, you mean in regards to T.S. Eliot that Frank's music is outing his inner dialogue.
yeah,
His
absolutely.
inner dialogue is
Yeah.
in the form of music. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think on Joe's Garage, it's something special. Maybe what I don't know. Some people would run away. Maybe there's cosmic debris, which is not in the end debris, but cosmic. What is behind his eyes?
Yeah.
But I think he's talking to these people that also try to put Joe down and make music illegal. And it's like, if you would know what's behind my eyes, you know, I'm totally finished for you. Maybe something like that. This is what I feel.
That's really good, Andreas, because it's also like being raised a Catholic. If you have impure thoughts, it's like, what do you mean? If I have impure thoughts and I don't act upon them, is that a sin? Well, maybe it's a way of getting it out of your system and you don't act upon it, so it's a healing process. So, you know, Bob Marshall, who did one of the great Zappa interviews, says, "Man, if they knew what was going on in my head, they'd throw me in jail." It's like, well, everybody has that. You can think things. That's who are the brain police. Okay, Lewis, you're up, but don't tell us that your sound isn't working because
No,
you can't do anything. It's
I
on
know.
your.
I figured it out. I figured it
Okay,
out.
good. Okay, you're up. What does it mean to you
So,
when it says
yeah.
what's behind my eyes?
So I think he means something very specific to me. It's for instance, if you've never heard any Webern, never heard any Varese, or never heard any Stockhausen, if you look behind his eyes, that's what you're going to find first and foremost. Okay, that was what was behind his eyes, in my opinion. He's talking musically, and most people don't know Stockhausen, don't know Varese, don't know Webern, and once they do, he's saying, in my opinion, you're going to be blown away and your life will never be the same again. So, in other words, look behind my eyes and see what's really, really interesting to me. And I use those three as an example because, you know, those were very important composers to him.
Now you touch on the topic we're going to get into is like, is Frank just a fucking Varese wannabe? Okay, Kahlil, you're up. But I wanted to, before you go, Kahlil, I wanted to ask Zach to just clarify this word. When you said skewered, what's skewered mean in a couple other words? What do you mean by skewered?
Satirize,
Okay.
poke fun at,
Yeah.
you know, sort of pull the
Okay.
rug out from underneath, you know.
Okay. I just want to clarify that. Okay, Kahlil, what does Frank mean to you when he says you don't want to know what's behind my eyes?
Okay. Well, first of all, it's so great to see everybody. I love you all, and it's so great to see you guys, and we can get together like this. Thank you, Monge, for having us all together. I'm actually running into a gig playing piano for a bunch of jazz singers here pretty soon, but I wanted to be here. I was like, it's actually Susie's gig, so Gerry can't get too mad at me. I was doing this to applaud Lewis. What you said, I thought it was great. You know, I was just applauding, and you all have brought great thoughts. But what I was thinking, I'm reminded of a short story that I'll share with you guys, where I think Frank is referring to playing into a stereotype that people have against him. Like, not it's a negative stereotype, like, oh, you don't want to see what's behind my, you know, something like, because everybody knows I'm this infamous person. I think that's what he's saying. And I have a really cool story that I'm kind of reminded of, that I kind of forgot about. 32 years ago, I moved to Cleveland with my buddy. We had a 2-man band, and there was a guy living in the building. It was this huge 100-year-old building. He ran a video company, like audio and video. This is back in the early 90s. He was in the 80s, but when I moved in, it was 93. And he and I were talking one day, and he says, yeah, we talked about music, and I told him I like Zappa, and he goes, oh, I interviewed Frank in 88. You want to see it? I go, yeah. So he shows me a VHS video of this guy. I think his name was Dave. He did little video productions all around Cleveland, and he interviewed Frank in 88, I think. And the 88 tour never made it to Cleveland, right? I don't think it did, but somehow it was in 87 or 88. He interviews Frank, and he's setting up. It's just him and Frank and a camera. And I've only seen this like 3 times, and I have the VHS somewhere in my attic, and I hope it's okay. I got to get it. But the guy goes, he's setting up. He goes, okay, so I'll start asking you questions. And Frank's like, sure. And then he goes, okay, here we go. So I'm sitting here with the infamous Frank Zappa. And then Frank goes, why am I infamous? Like that. And then I don't remember the rest of it except for that. That was the very beginning of it. And I've got this tape, this VHS scratchy tape. I hope it's okay, but it's in my attic, and it's hard for me to get up there. But I think that he's like, he knows that he has this reputation, you know, that he's got this infamous reputation. And this interviewer said, I'm here with the infamous Frank Zappa. Frank's like, why am I infamous? What did I do to become so infamous, you know? So anyway, I think there's some sort of playing into a stereotype by Frank.
Yeah. Really good, Kahlil. Yeah, get us that tape. Have you looked on YouTube if it's already on?
I've looked around and I've never seen it. And if I can find it, I'll
we can digitize it for you. That would be great.
Yeah.
And see, that's the whole thing about what I tell all you people and everybody in the Zappa world is, what are you going to do with your archives when you die? Oh, my kids are going to take care of it. Yeah, it's going to go in a garbage can. It's just like Tommy Mars. I says, Tommy, what's going to happen when you die with all your stuff in your little place? You know, Zach, you got to talk to him about it. It's like, oh, don't worry. Yeah, don't worry. It's going to go in a garbage can. So, I mean, I literally collected 60 to 80 boxes of stuff on Zappa and Duchamp and McLuhan and Joyce, and put them in a shed in my yard, and I had to get rid of them. So this is the funny story, and I'm a total hypocrite in this regard. Basically, I trashed a lot of great Zappa archives because it was just eaten up by insects and whatnot. But there's some of it still that could have been salvaged, but it was just timing, and it was just the time I had to clean up. So the truck that took all this shit to the dump had an open top, and some of the shit just flew out of the top and was on the street, I guess, because the next day I was riding my bike and I found 2 rare Zappa things on the street. It's like, oh, wow. Then I was like, well, I can't throw this away. This looks valuable. So it's like, again, why do we want to save all this shit? And why do we think we need to save all this shit? And why isn't live oral history where it's really at? Because what I'm after here is people to go off on tangents, stories, and anecdotes like Kahlil just did. So, Tyler, you're up. What do you think Frank meant when he said "behind my eyes"?
First off, let me just say, Gerry, when you go, the only thing I want from you is the kazoo that Frank signed for
Yeah, it's yours, dude.
All right.
I
What
have
does
a
it say on
kazoo
it?
that Frank signed and
Wow.
signed.
What does it say on it?
No, it doesn't say
Oh.
anything, but when I proposed the idea to Frank to have kazoos as, rock and roll merchandise, because there was a store in LA that only sold kazoos, and they sold them with logos printed on them. I said, so why don't we have kazoos? He says, yeah, sure, we can do that. And what do you want to print on it, Frank? And he says, blow it out your ass. Now, it never happened, but it exists because we can talk about it. So anybody here can get a kazoo and, draw on the little edge there, blow it out your ass, Frank Zappa. Okay, that's good, Tyler. That's what it is. It's all about memory. So thanks for remembering that. But when Frank says you don't want to know what's behind my eyes, who's the you and what's behind my eyes? Is it him?
I was hoping I would just get away with the little joke and you could move on to somebody else. But yeah, you know me, Gerry. I'm horrible with lyrics. But to me, I think Frank is actually really good at writing from other perspectives too, like from a character.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I always had considered the possibility that he probably wrote these lyrics pre-Joe's Garage, and I don't know how many of the lyrics he wrote like from the character, but maybe he was thinking from a different point of view other than his own, somebody who's maybe featuring their hurt a tad too much, somebody who's being a little dramatic about I'm different, I'm hurt, I'm all these things, that kind of thing. So it always seemed a bit like he was purposely being funny and dramatic about it.
Yeah, you can feature my hurt. It's a really good point, Tyler, because when Frank says, I want my titties and I want my beer, is that Frank speaking? Or is he reflecting what normal white dudes, like we are all entitled white dudes here? But is that what we really want to say? But we're too, highbrow to say it out loud, but go to any Zappa show where everybody's singing every lyric. To me, it's better than hearing the guys on the stage sing it in tune.
That's a biker dude.
That's what?
That's a biker dude. It's the saying those lines. He's a biker, that's titties and beer is from a biker's viewpoint.
I know, but it is funny that Tyler brought up that it's characters. So it's like Walt Whitman saying, I contain multitudes. So there's a little, everybody wants to have a little titties and a little beer.
You bet.
So, it's not a bad thing, but you discount it to a biker. I mean, Lewis, that's the funniest thing about answering the Zappa hotline, because you get college professors like the next person up, or you get fucking lowbrow biker kids. So what? That's the beauty of Frank, is he appealed to such a range of different types of people. I'll tell you, the most incredible thing was when I was in high school starting to listen to Absolutely Free, one of my parents didn't like rock and roll then. It's not like today where you take your kid to a fucking Pearl Jam concert. It's like, give me a break. Let the kid find their own music. No, I'll take you to your first concert. Like Tyler's dad did and ruined his life. I'll take you to a Zappa concert, Tyler.
Look at me now talking to all you motherfuckers. This is what happens.
And see, look at it. It does have its services and disservices. But one of my friends said his dad liked the Mothers of Invention. We're like, what? Your dad likes our music? That was weird. Because, okay, fancy dancy Andy, college professor. How many years you taught Zappa in college?
29, and I just
29.
I just finished it for the last time.
29 years teaching Zappa. What a cake job, man.
Yeah, really, that's true. Thank you all. I agree with Tyler. I think that I'm of the mind that that song that's on Joe's Garage, that the first half was written many years prior. They were using that music like in the, when you listen to Tush, Tush, Tush on Stage Volume 2. You know what I'm talking about, Tyler.
Yeah.
I think in Token of My Extreme, the first half of that song was written at least 5 or 6 years earlier. And I think that what he's saying there is, you mentioned the Brain Police a second ago, but like in the Who Are the Brain Police, when they say, what will you do when the label comes off and the plastic's all melted and the chrome's too soft? And if you finally really get to see what's going on, if you get the glimpse of reality, what then? And then it breaks into all that feedback and screaming, and I think I'm going to die. I think I'm going to die. I think I'm going to die. That, and Simon and I have talked about this, that if you really knew what was going on, you would freak out and think you were going to die. And I think that Frank is basically just saying that if you really knew what it was like going on, you know, as Frank Zappa, your conceptions of me and your perceptions of the world will be rocked to the point where maybe you're better off not knowing.
Yeah, because he's saying you don't want to know.
Right.
You're better off. But in a way, Andy, that's the flip on that line. You don't want to know is him luring you in, listening to the lyric. That's the symbolist stole it from Edgar Allan Poe. I'm only going to tell you a little to lure you in.
Yeah, and here we are all these years later, still talking about what was going on inside his mind. So it was brilliant in that regard.
Really good, Andy. Now, Andreas, you answered, but do you want to add anything else? Did you?
I think also you have to take this when is what something is. So when he says something on Joe's Garage, and it sounds like he said something that's nearly the same some years before, it don't mean that it's the same, because it's when he said it. And he said it in the context of Joe's Garage, this totalitarian system. It's really, it's crazy. And what I like, what I think there is in the 1992 Guitar Player magazine, this fantastic thing where he talks about the needles, that imagine a head of a pin, and the head of the pin is a totally detailed illustration, or maybe it's a feeling, or maybe it's a thought, or maybe a symbol. I mean, he goes into beautiful words, you know, Frank Zappa saying a thought or a feeling or a symbol, you know. This is like, it's beautiful when he says this. And he says that you see now, you put off the head, the part of the needle, and you have only the head. And there is an area like North America and half of Europe, you know, and it's not only one space, it's not only one flat ocean of heads, it's even in the height, you know, it has many levels. And this is a project object, and it started in 1964. And I think he was shooting with his mind through in diagonals, totally crazy, through all these pins with the detailed illustrations, and took there apart and took there apart. And then he created something made out of these parts, but all these parts were himself, you know, all these needle pins, these ideas. And this is how I look at his work.
Yeah, it's a good point, because it's called it's what McLuhan did mid-career. He said the medium is a massage, the medium is the message, which is misinterpreted but mostly known as the form is more important than the content. So it's like John Smothers saying, I like classical music, and Frank took a rock band and made it sound like an orchestra. It wasn't like fucking Moody Blues taking an orchestra and enhancing a rock song. That's bullshit. I mean, that's not bullshit. I mean, Van Dyke Parks does it for every rock band that ever did it. But I mean, it's like this whole thing of how do you transform what Andreas was touching on, I think, was alchemy.
Mm.
Take two things that are known and
Mm.
put them together and
Yeah.
come up with a third unknown thing.
Yeah.
That's what Frank did, and then he satirized his unknown thing. So it was
Yeah.
a perfect lead into Harold Bloom's influence of anxiety. So anxiety of influence. Sorry, I got it backwards. Okay, go ahead, Andy.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, if I'm remembering that interview that Andreas was mentioning about the pinheads,
Yeah.
each with an infinitely detailed universe, if you will, in each one, I took that to mean, on top of what Andreas has already said, that his the notion of infinite multiple universes that are simultaneous. Like I say in the 200 Motels, it's very possible for multiple realities to coexist.
Yeah.
And I think that was an extrapolation of that even to a grander extent.
Yeah. No, that is amazing interview. I'm glad you referenced it. Frank talking about Pinhead Head. And in the beauty of Frank celebrating his 85 years on Earth. By the way, I tried to figure out who's the person who is alive today who is still who knew Frank for the longest amount of his 85 years. So
Art Trip. Art Trip, probably.
That's a good guess, because I was going to say Candy Zappa.
Oh, well.
Candy was born in 51. What year did Frank? Because she starts in being involved with Frank in 51. Art Trip probably didn't get involved until the 60s.
67, yeah.
It's a good point. My friend flew to Art Tripp's town to interview him, and he kicked him out of his house, and he says, "I didn't want you to interview him." It's like, I would like to interview him, but an important guy, because he's a chiropractor after being a classical percussionist. But this leads to, and anybody have anything to say? I'm for stories, anecdotes, tangents like Kahlil's. Raise your hand at any time. Go ahead, Louis.
I wanted to get on something you and I have talked about. Gerry, you seem to have a certain antipathy toward the posthumous releases. And I'd like to just get into
don't get into that now.
I want to get into a very specific kind of thing.
Okay.
So I can't help myself. If it's out and it has Frank Zappa on the title, I'm going to buy it. Okay, that's just the way that mask and stuff is from the latest Halloween concert.
Yeah,
and that was a $200 set, and I really almost didn't get it, but I get it. So what I wanted to talk about really was like an example of why I think the posthumous stuff is so important. The Hot Rat Sessions, which I think I see in Andy's background there. The Hot Rat Sessions to me is one of the greatest posthumous releases of all. I'll give you an example why. There's a thing on it called Transition, and it's actually 20 Small Cigars. And it goes on and on and on, this massive amount of rehearsing of this piece which he called Transition at the time. Yeah. And we end up with 20 Small Cigars, which is like less than 3 minutes long. It's a 2-minute little piece. And it's from this massive work that he did, and we get to listen to it on Hot Rat Sessions. So to me, that's extremely important as far as Zappa the editor goes, Zappa with the razor blade. Because we end up with this beautiful little piece called 20 Small Cigars, which actually comes from, I'd say, at least 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 hours of rehearsal with Ian and those guys. And it's really fun to listen to what it originally was. It was a massive amount of music there. But Zappa as the editor, in other words, Zappa would probably agree with you. He would probably say, Joe, Amit, quit releasing all these concerts, because that's not what he would do. He would take it and make the stage series. He would use his razor blade and edit this stuff down. But I am so grateful personally.
Oh, Louis, you've said it. Your point's clear. We'll go round robin. Of course, it's me personally. I only have so much time in my life. He put out 60 albums in 30 years, and he approved of them. That's enough for me. I know there's good stuff, and you guys are the specialists in telling me you got to hear this. I mean, Andreas consumes everything. Let's just go round robin really quick. Okay, Zach, pro or against releasing 100 albums after the guy dies?
Oh, I mean, I think it's a complicated issue because I think that there are two, when you're a creative and you are also reliant upon your creativity to make money and survive, there's, Frank Zappa the artist and Frank Zappa the businessman. I mean, Frank Zappa definitely wanted his recordings to sound a certain way. He wanted his live recordings to sound a certain way because I didn't realize, for example, when I first listened to the "You Can't Do That on Stage" series, I mean, I didn't know how many edits he really made in all of those recordings to get something that sounds like a live tape that could be from 100 different shows.
Right.
But at the same time, when he learned that bootleggers were selling bootlegs of his shows with warts and all, he decided to release the Beat the Boot series to,
They
basically say,
sounded horrible, and he
and
didn't clean them up.
but yeah, exactly. But at the same time, that's sort of more on the business side of the artist than the artistic integrity side, if you ask me. And I think there's the famous quote that he may or may not have said to Gail Zappa when he was going to pass away, which was "Sell everything and get out of the business."
Yeah.
Well, if you sell everything, that means you sell your catalog, your name, your likeness, all things related to it. And I feel as if at that point it was more important for him to make sure that perhaps his family would be taken care of financially than to say, oh, they're going to hear this mistake that I made on the earliest recorded demo of, this song from 1968 or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think it's weird. I think it's weird when family members or lawyers or people who might have known the artist for 2 seconds end up being involved in an estate, and then they
Yeah,
say
how
this is
about
what
Hendrix's sister? Give me a fucking break. That
I've.
is sick.
Well,
Okay,
I don't know.
let's not
I
waste too much time on this. You made a good point there because Zach, you really brought up, if you watch Sean Lennon on CBS Sunday Morning today, it's amazing in 7 minutes. So he is giving he's the custodian of the fucking Beatles, in a way, and John Lennon now. And what does he say? He says, "How's it feel to be the custodian?" He goes, "Well, it's complicated because the world is the custodian. So anybody can consume the Beatles and John Lennon. We're the custodians." And that's what we're the custodians of Frank. Go ahead, Zach.
One more thing I wanted to add is that I was watching an interview with the rapper producer Tyler, the Creator, and
Yeah.
one of the things he mentioned was that in his will, he wants all of his computers destroyed, all of his hard drives destroyed. He has a
Good
strict
luck.
do not release my demos, do not release any music I never put out.
Good
So
luck.
I'm not sure if there's a right or wrong answer to this, but I do know that because it has been such a controversial topic for so many different artists, now I think the musicians and the creators that exist today are being very specific on how they want their legacies handled.
And good luck. He's going to die, and there's kids are going to say, "Dude, we can still cash in on him." And there gets a lawyer to get around it. Okay, Simon, you're the Beatles guy. Did you know George Harrison wrote a song with Zappa in the lyric? Oh my God, I can't.
Yeah.
How many people knew that? Raise their hand. Yeah, Andreas and Tyler know it. I can't believe. You look it up. It is freaky because it's the record company was telling George, "You have to do something more commercial." So he throws this line in his song mentioning Frank Zappa. That's more commercial. Anyways, they say it's a shitty song. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Anyway, Simon, just briefly on this topic, what's your take?
Well, I think people have been fighting over the wastepaper basket of James Joyce and, famous poets and writers forever. So it's sort of anybody who's interested in really studying how they put these things together. It's important material if you can get your hands on it. But as far as the artist is concerned, I mean, particularly Frank, the edit is his thing. I mean, the finished album is an intensely edited piece. and so much of it didn't actually exist in real time. I mean, even his guitar solos, they're sort of spliced together into something that sounds how he wanted it to sound. So if we're then going to say, well, actually what he played is this, well, I mean, that's of interest, but that's not the artistic thing.
Yeah.
It's like saying, well, here's the canvas that the guy painted on. Look, see the different bits of cotton that are being used. I mean, the work of art is what's presented, and we should judge him artistically on that. But there's a lot of interest in the other stuff.
It's what we're doing right now. We're just regurgitating a bunch of shit that we should just be listening to Frank together. Okay,
Yeah.
Andreas, you're up.
Yeah, this I think his official albums, this is it. Nothing more. You don't need more, but you cannot control the fan. The fan who wants more. For me now, what this posthumous releases, I have to say, I don't care from what hands I got a bootleg, and if the bootleg is illegal because he has no name, or if this bootleg is now official and legal because it's Universal or ZAPPA Family Trust. It's some kind of bootlegs. And what you said before, Gerry, with this, that you brought alchemy in, and this is, I think, sometimes the point of his albums. There is alchemy happening, and he knew how to work it. He knew how to cut it. He knew what molecules, what pinheads, what sound system, what vibration he brings there to give you the entertainment. If it's only entertainment, I think it's for me much more beyond entertainment. But it's like, this is it, and I think if I remember well, I read somewhere that the biggest problem with the bootlegs was not only from his part as a businessman, that the money, he don't make money because, sorry, a ZAPPA fan who buys bootlegs and says it's great will not say, no, so I don't need Hot Rats anymore. He will buy Hot Rats. I mean, I think it was that his music, he was not presented like he wanted to be presented. That's the biggest problem of the bootlegs. It's not only the money, there is a step higher. And the official bootlegs, it's really, I bought bootlegs. I was happy when I had in the 1970s or early 80s, some friends taped me some cassettes, and there were, I heard the Indiscreet Picture Show, which was the KCTV concert. I was quite happy, but yeah, it's like, this is how I see the official stuff.
But it's also bootleg. The people on 818 hotline would go bootlegging, but it, in the long run, any kid who was buying Zappa bootlegs before Zappateers was just increasing Frank's popularity, and he wasn't taking money out of his pocket. So it was so bullshitty that Frank, you guys know, when Frank put out Beat the Bootlegs, it was like stupid, but it was the biggest selling record for him up to that point. It was like, so shut the fuck up, Gerry. Okay, Zach.
Just the one thing I think we should all mention for context is that Frank did not live to see the rise of Napster and the collapse of the recorded music industry. And so I think, like many artists, he would have had a very different opinion on bootlegging and selling live recordings and, releasing more albums if he saw that, these days, if he put out a brand new CD, if he was still alive, he would be considered a legacy act. There's a chance he would be doing something closer to maybe what, I don't know, I don't want to name a particular artist.
I will name him, Zach. I would hope he would be doing what Mono Neon does. 1 minute free every week, or what? He just put it out free, 1 minute. So what?
I know. I think it would be so. Some of the editing, some people haven't answered yet, but I just wanted to say that I think it would be interesting if he were to look at this in the context of a post-Napster, post-streaming market, because I think he would have gotten very creative into how he marketed his new compositions.
Yep. Really good. Okay, Andy, you're up, and then Tyler. And Kahlil, unmute if you want to answer. Go ahead, Andy.
Well, I would just say that I wish people owned all of the official releases before they start to buy those later ones. Then it makes perfect sense to me.
There you
But,
go.
well, you
That's
see also, like, well, Lewis was mentioning the Hot Rats, but the 200 Motels, there's stuff on that was in the movie, but not on the album. So there's gems buried in these things. You may have to wade through a lot of stuff that's not as interesting, but I think there are value to people like us who want to understand how Frank did stuff.
Right.
But I think the unsuspecting consumer would be confused if they dove into the posthumous releases.
That's it, Lewis. That's my best answer is what he
Well,
said.
I'm speaking about
I'm
us.
not anti him.
I'm speaking about us as Zappa freaks. You know,
Yeah,
I mean,
but,
that's yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not anti him, but it's also like cha-ching for Universal and Bruce Resnikoff. It's like they just making a ton of money, but all the power to them because people will buy the shit. So you know what Frank said? I'm a devout capitalist. Art is making something and selling it.
That's right.
Okay, but you can give it away too. Go ahead, or Zach, you had another thing?
Oh no, I was just pointing as to, yeah, I feel as if for Frank, business was really king in terms of how he operated his independent label.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's why he didn't sell the kazoos, blow it out your ass, because he probably figured in the long run it wouldn't have a good market return. Just a lot of gas. Okay, Tyler, you're up. How many you got out of the hundreds that's been out?
I have no idea. I don't have all of the posthumous ones. I buy a lot of them, but not all of them.
A third or a half or
Probably half.
half?
I have
Okay.
all the ones he released during his life. But
Right.
not,
And
not
then you bought them. Okay.
yeah,
See.
yeah.
But any opinion?
I have two things. One is a funny story about Beat the Boots. Gerry, what was the name of the guy who curated that? He was like a super fan. Tom Brown. Okay, so when I was editing for Arthur Barrow, I asked him about Tom because they were really close friends, and he was like, "Yeah, when he put that series together, I told him to put literally as many that I play on as possible out." So that's why there's like a whole bunch from the Arthur Barrow era, apparently, and that's why.
That's good.
The second thing is that, and Zach can speak to this too as an amazing guitar player, I feel like, just from my guitar playing point of view, if somebody had clicked on a random like version of me playing some song and I played horribly and I was out of tune, I would kill myself. I would want to die. And I think about somebody clicking on some random City of Tiny Lights solo or whatever, where Frank is just not bringing it, and they're like, man, this sucks. I'm not going to keep going. Having said that, I am generally like very pro put stuff out. I think people should want it, but that's where my mind goes.
But you bought everything legit first. And you know, some birdie whispered something about somebody saying all the shit on Baby Snake's Frank's guitar is out of tune. Is that true? No, it's
I don't have perfect pitch, but I think he's okay.
But not true because that's like when Dweezil complained that Jimi Hendrix played a guitar that was out of tune. He says, "Yeah," but I go, "Yeah, but he played it really good, so does it matter?" I mean, Joseph Spence, if you haven't looked into him, he's one of the greatest guitarists ever. He self-tuned his own guitar, and my friend went on stage once and tuned his guitar before he came out, and he freaked out. He goes, "Dude, what are you fucking doing? I tune my guitar a weird way." Okay, we got everybody. Kahlil's probably busy making music like we should be doing, but we're making music. Here's the next question. Lewis, thanks for that question. And we're going to get to Simon's romantic question. But here's the next one. It's about Harold Bloom, Great Lit Crit, The Anxiety of Influence. It's basically you absorb your influence, then you abandon them. Okay, so Tyler bringing up guitar playing, and Zach, I've asked Zach, I said, Johnny Frusciante from the Peppers is really good, but he ain't doing nothing now that's inspiring to me that's different from Band of Gypsies. He's just doing Band of Gypsies really well. And Zach said, "No, Gerry, you're wrong. And this is why." And he could detail it. So I think Frank, and we could just go around and everybody could name a Frank influence. We'll start with you, Lewis, because you already named 3 of them. Is Frank was just a Spike Jones wannabe, and he
No,
would probably go, "Thanks for the compliment."
right.
And of course, he blended in a little Igor Stravinsky and a little Johnny Guitar Watson, but he did Spike Jones really good. So, how can you really create anything new under the sun in this day and age, especially in music? Everything's been done and no one's doing anything really new. And we all think Frank did something new, but if you study Spike Jones, it's not much different. So, Lewis, what did Frank do different than Webern? What was the other guy you said? Webern?
Whereas Stockhausen, let me use an example. I got a perfect example for this. So the question really is, does humor belong in music?
That's
I'd like to go back like about 3 centuries. Okay, a lot of people listen to a Beethoven symphony. I'm gonna just throw out the first symphony, Beethoven's first symphony. Now I don't know how many of you guys are really into this kind of stuff, but there are some incredibly funny things that only a 19th century audience would laugh at. Okay. Like, for instance, in the fourth movement of Beethoven's first symphony, he starts off with this G major scale that creeps up the scale note by note. And to a 19th century audience, the way he does it would be hilarious. They were sitting in their seats chuckling. And that's the kind of thing that a lot of people don't realize. You go to a concert today and you listen to the Beethoven First Symphony, you're not going to get the same humor that the 19th century audience got. And Beethoven had a great sense of humor, and so did Haydn, by the way. So I think a lot of composers that we listen to today, we don't understand that kind of humor because it's centuries old. So I'm not sure what your question is getting at, except that Zappa's influences about Spike Jones, for example, it was just making music accessible to people with a sense of humor. And I mean, Peter Schickele just passed away, and he did it for classical music. And I can't get enough of Peter Kubach. I think it's some of the
Lewis,
greatest stuff ever.
You see Keith Jarrett say who was one of his biggest influences was Victor Borge.
Victor Borge, of course, yes. Yeah.
That to me raised the notch on Keith for me, big time.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was good. Now, Tyler, we'll go to you because I think when Zappa put out the guitar book, transcribing his guitar solos was like, oh, this is cool, another product to sell. But any kid who could read the guitar book and get something out of it shouldn't be reading Zappa stuff. They should just go be making their own new music and not being so like, oh, I'm going to learn everything. So, I mean, I know Gerry Allen, great jazz pianist, transcribed Eric Dolphy's solos, which is to me amazing, rather than, transcribing Art Tatum. But your thoughts on that, Tyler? Was Frank just a Johnny Guitar Watson wannabe?
It's a little more sophisticated than that. I'd like to think. It's for him. Everything. Sorry, you could probably hear my damn dog barking in the background. I apologize for that.
Oh, that's all right.
For Frank, it's all about like the idea is balance. I think, like that's the mission statement. So everything that gets like input, his output, it's all equal. I think.
Yeah.
So whether it's the blues influence or maybe like Indian music influence or more sophisticated improvisers, whoever that may be. And I think it goes past the improvisation as well. Like he loves rock and roll, he loves doo-wop, he loves modern classical, all that stuff. And then it's like he puts it all evenly and stirs it up, and then that's what comes out.
Really good point, Tyler. Yeah, don't worry about your dog barking because that's Andreas sneaking into you.
Yeah, there you go. If you're a Great Dane in your videos, that's what's happening upstairs.
This is a dog speaking. We got to get deep into that. But Indian music, Frank took me out to dinner once on this video shoot I was with him. And in the middle of the dinner, it was an Indian restaurant, and he turned to everybody and goes, "They just changed keys." Like, who was listening that close to the background music and having conversation and eating when you could just boop, That was pretty amazing. Okay, Simon, you're what? Don't you think Frank's just kind of a wannabe?
No, not at all. I think he's listening very carefully. Just as you said there, I mean, he hears things that he likes and uses them as elements in the giant gumbo that he's creating. I mean, in that way, he was closer to Stravinsky maybe than maybe Varese or some of the Stockhausen. He's drawing on a diverse range of influences and putting them together in unique ways and finding the commonalities between them and making it work as it's like it's not even a collage. I mean, there is a collage aspect to what he's doing, but it's more than that. It's creating new material. I mean, nothing new under the sun. Okay, but each layer becomes more sophisticated, and you either kick it up or you smooth it out or whatever you do. It's about the total balance. But he's got these influences, but it's not that he wants to be any of them. I don't think it's like meet the Buddha on the road and kill him. You just take what you need and move on, and that's it.
That is a good point. Kill him. Well, that two things when you said Stravinsky. Warren Zevon used to hang out with Stravinsky in Hollywood when he was like 17 or 18. And I met Warren at a fucking art gallery once. And I said, "So you hung out with Stravinsky? What the fuck? What do you think he contributed to the music?" And he goes, "I don't know." It's like, fuck you, you drugged out rock star. And it should have been Frank. Could you imagine Frank hanging out with Igor at age 17? I mean, that's what his goal was Edgar, but fucking Edgar was in New York. Igor was right in Hollywood.
That's the mystery, isn't it? Why didn't he? I mean, he sought out Nicholas Slaminsky, so why would he not have reached out to Stravinsky?
My favorite Nicholas Slaminsky. I have many stories about him, but my favorite is I'm watching Dweezil and Amit and Scott and Mike Keneally do their 20, 40 minute or 20 minutes of every hit, that melody. If you haven't seen it, you got to see it. They play every hit from the 70s and 80s in 20 minutes. And Frank is sitting there next to me and Nicholas Slonimsky. And they quote Grand Funk Railroad, which is from my hometown, Flint, Michigan. And I kind of hate them. I guess they're okay, rock band. People kind of like them, but I kind of hate them. And when they quote Grand Funk Railroad, Frank's fist goes up like a heavy metal kid and goes, "Yeah." I says, "Get over it, Frank. They suck." Okay, Andy, you're up. Isn't Frank you studied him deeply, all his influences. I know all these people have answered this question too pedestrian. I mean, come on. Frank was a wannabe of all his great heroes. How did he abandon them? I mean, you can go through and figure out which song. In fact, Keneally got to hang out with Frank on his deathbed, and Frank was whipping out his 45s and playing them and saying, "That's where I got that lick from. That's where I got that lick from."
Well, yeah, I'm sure you can find the sources for certain elements within Frank's music, but then again, you're discounting all the music that Frank made that bears no resemblance at all to any of the people we've already talked about.
Yeah.
Like The Ocean is the Ultimate Solution, or there's any number of things that he did that really is totally uniquely Zappa. And I would say that it's kind of like what everybody's been talking about, Simon maybe more so, that when early in his career, Frank said that, look, my influences were on the one hand, 20th century art music. Again, Lewis mentioned Stravinsky, Varese, Webern, Bartok, what have you. And on the other hand, blues and R&B. And he said he loved them equally, and that he wanted to set out to do something to bring those disparate elements together into one cohesive package. And I don't think anybody's ever done that. I don't think anybody had ever done what Frank Zappa did in bringing those things together in the way that he did. So that while he didn't invent those influences, obviously, the way he combined them, I think, was totally unique and very important. And I would say also, just in terms of just the touring rock band thing, as specific as electrifying Ruth Underwood's marimba and xylophone and having an orchestral percussion player as a full member of a rock and roll band playing, stadiums. I don't think anybody had ever done that. So he was always pushing the boundaries in terms of technology and doing unique combinations that I find fresh, no matter what the source influences.
Really good. And we're going to have Andreas up and then Zach on this question, but it's funny because what you said, Andy, reminds me of when John Zorn released the Carl Stalling stuff. I said, dude, have you ever watched a Bugs Bunny cartoon with your eyes shut? No one knows or thinks about what they're hearing when they're watching Bugs Bunny. I mean, not no one, but most people don't realize that's an orchestra playing that music. And if you saw the documentary Bugs Bunny Superstar, they showed a picture and like, what? That was an orchestra playing that? We just didn't realize it. But during that time, the term came up, scavenger composer. And I think that's the best thing that you could apply to Frank, Carl Stalling, Charles Ives, and a few other people. They're scavenger composers. They take from everywhere.
Well, we all do.
Like Lewis mentioned earlier, 20 Small Cigars. Frank wrote that melody. He didn't scavenge that from somebody. The chord progressions that he wrote, and he wrote these things, you understand.
That's a good point. Good comeback. Okay, Andreas, any thoughts on the anxiety of influence?
I think we should take it in a biblical scale, and turn it around like there was Adam and Eve. We are all sinners, or all Catholic or all Christian people are sinners because Adam and Eve bite the apple. Let's turn it around. There were Adam and Eve biting the apple, making a band, starting to play, and Frank Zappa later took also the apple, but made a fruit salad, put more into it. So it's not about a wannabe. It's just what happened first and what came. He put all together. And then he made maybe he crossed some seeds and made a new fruit. Maybe that. I think there is no wannabe. It's not possible. You cannot, like some people say, the wheel invent new, our computers were first a little electro thing. It's all based and based and based. And he took the apple and bite it and knew more and made a fruit salad. This is like, he knew what works together. Also that there were no frontier between low art and high art, trash and fine art. This is what I'm always looking at Simon now, because this is like the daily use of as above, so below. Let's take this, let's take this. It can be all the same, I put it together. You will see, I show you, it's all the same. It's wonderful. It's all beautiful, there is no. Yeah, I don't know. He also said this is not for intellectuals and other dead people. He was very, very smart,
Yeah, Frank. Yeah, you were anticipating Simon's question. Well, pinnacle there, Simon. But Zach, it's amazing, Andreas, you touched on Sinner, because that's something we're going to go into too.
Oh.
Zach, you're up. I mean, come on. Johnny Frusciante is a great guitarist. I used to wean him right here in my bedroom, and he could play any Zappa, any Jimi Hendrix, or any Lick, and he practiced 8 hours a day. And now what is he doing? I mean, it sounds good, but you could say, oh no, he's doing more than that. But in the long run, is John Zorn, is Mike Patton and Mr. Bungle Zappa wannabes? All these, and now it's just like Zappa tribute bands, Furious Bongos and Stinkfoot Orchestra, and you're the band you're in. Dang, are you a Zappa tribute band?
All right, so out of those 30, 40 people, who should I defend first?
You should say, shut the fuck up, bitch. That's a stupid question, Gerry. But I mean, you don't have to defend. I mean, it's basically you know who you grew up listening to, and how do you, I mean, the basic question is how do you abandon? I mean, in essence, you're in the greatest Zappa tribute band in a way, and that's an honor, I'm sure, but you're is it how do you abandon that? Could you guys just play like that in that spirit? No, because that's what you're doing. You're keeping that alive. I mean, wasn't Frank just keeping alive Johnny Guitar Watson and Edgar Varese and Spike Jones?
Well, I guess before I answer the Frank Zappa question, let me just lightly touch on the Dweezil Zappa question, which
Yeah.
is I think that from what Dweezil Zappa has told me about, sort of the arc of Zappa plays Zappa, in the beginning it was okay, I want to do it exactly like the record. I'm going to do this, Frank solo note for note. The keyboard player is going to do the George Duke comping note for note over here. We're going to do exactly the fill from this live version. It was very much I want to honor the music exactly as it was played. And then I think later in Dweezil's career doing the Zappa play Zappa stuff, that's when he started to stray into, you know what, I think I want to try new things. I think, Frank always wanted to be, progressive with the arrangements of certain old songs. And I think I want to do this and this and this. And so I think, in Dweezil's later tours, what he was doing is a little bit different than how he might have started out when they did the first tour with the actual Zappa, Frank Zappa musicians, when they had Napoleon Murphy Brock and Terry Bozzio and things like that. So I don't know. I mean, that kind of had its own arc. And then for the Frank Zappa question, I'd say there's definitely a point where I think maybe in the earlier Mothers of Invention days, if you were to listen to how he would make the rock portions of the songs, it sounded maybe more similar to the groups that were around at the time, and then the orchestral stuff was maybe more directly linked to Stockhausen or Music Concrete or Varese or something like that. The time period that I mostly give as my stock answer to the most, in my opinion, the most unique Zappa type of composition that I've never heard anywhere else before, oddly enough, is side B of Ship Arriving Too Late to Save a Drowning Witch. I would say Drowning Witch through Teenage Prostitute with envelopes in the middle. If we are to agree that the most progressive composers or artists will use all the tools of their time and then build on top of that, when you look at the arrangements and the way that he uses the polyrhythms, the use of the EML synthesizers, the take on opera, the fact that even in the most complex sections of all those songs, you have Scott Tunes playing an orchestral difficulty bass line, but with a punk sensibility, on the, or the equipment he's using, the dynaflangers to get that bow kind of, sound on everything with the doubling. And then lyrically, in the beginning of Drowning Witch, I feel as if a lot of people that have written about Zappa's composition mention, is it called Sprachsang, or what's the German word?
Sprechstimme.
Sprechstimme, thanks.
Wait, let the Germans say it. How do you say
Andreas, what is it?
Stimme. Oh, Sprechstimme.
There we go.
Yeah.
I feel as if when you look at how that's sort of the best version of that up until that point, and then he got even deeper with the jazz party hats and Dangerous Kitchen on the next record, it's sort of, I really don't think that you can say that whole section and era of Zappa's music is directly linked to Varese or 12-tone music or anything, because it's just the tools and the fact that he's doing it for Rock Band and the arrangement. It's a completely different sound, and I don't know if anyone has even copied it since. It's so unique for its time.
Yeah, that's like, this is how Pee Wee Herman would say it. Splitterlove. They were trying to get Paul Rubens trying to get Frank to score Pee Wee's Playhouse, and he wouldn't do it. And I was a Pee Wee freak, and I said, do you know that Pee Wee is gay? And Frank looked at me and went like, duh, the dude uses rouge. What do you think? Okay, let's go directly into Simon's question. It was so well put, Simon, because I'm doing this big essay and I'll ask you all to contribute on how Richard Rodgers was a direct influence on Frank. And I have done deep research and very specifics. And one of them is, isn't it romantic? You know, the song is quoted in Punky's Whips with such great pomposity. And I actually had a few moments with Scott at the recent Baked Potato Show, and I told him about this. And he said Frank literally told him personally that Broadway music is specifically designed to elicit tears. So, you know, it's this whole thing about I'm driving Frank to the dentist. I say, why did you quote, isn't it Surrey with the fringe on top? In a guitar solo in Australia in 73, he says, I heard all that shitty music. And I'm like, that's not shitty music. You know, the Great American Songbook is a lot of a part of Frank's songs, what he pulls from. He pulls from everywhere. TV commercials, Great American Songbook. I mean, how many people know Frank quotes Thelonious Monk in the middle of George Duke quotes Thelonious Monk. Did he pay? What were you going to say, Andreas?
Maybe this reminds me of this interview that I try to find again, because where I read somewhere that he when I talked to you, when his grandmother died the first time in the church when they were singing Kyrie and the candles, he knew, oh, there's music, I don't see it, but it's a vibration, you know. And later, then he was. I read it somewhere. He was quite excited that the NASA made underwater sonar tests with dolphins, and the how the vibration, the sound was played to these dolphins, made the dolphin move in this direction or that direction, maybe carrying a torpedo or something ugly, you know. But what you said now, that when he said that Broadway music is created also to make you cry, you know. So he knew about this. What can a vibration, a note, do to you? How can a special line of note? I'm not a musician. Maybe it sounds stupid to some, but if you have this line of dots, you know, maybe you can make him cry, but before he cries, maybe I make him smile and wonder why. And then I give him the answer, why? And then after that, I give him again an idea, why not? Or something like that. This is like, you know, this is interesting with this Richard Rodgers thing now for me,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
no,
when you say
it's
this.
a deep thing because it's Frank pulls from so many people, but I'm kind of zooming in specifically, and it's turning into through you, Andreas, the whole rap in Them or Us about Broadway shows, and no, in Thingfish, the whole rap about.
Fish, yeah.
So it's really a bigger Broadway thing because if you go to Frank as an alchemist, you go, what did he take? He took theater and rock and put them together and invented theatrical rock. That's what I say. And then he satirized his own new invention, alchemy. But theater rock was already made up when Screaming Jay started crawling out of a coffin on a rock stage. So he didn't invent it, but he sort of kind of really blossomed what theatrical rock could be, especially at the Garrick for that long run. But what you referred to is what Frank called air molecule sculpting. So when he saw the candles move because the choir was singing in the church, he realized that. But we'll start with you, Simon, about why you asked that, because I wanted to talk about it first, that when Frank says, I write my music for myself and not other people, Oh, well, that sounds cool, Frank. But you know what? And if other people like it, that's great. That's over romanticizing the music writing process in America when you live in a consumer culture. What did Frank do right off the bat? He came from Pomona and Cucamonga and peddled his 45s to Art LeBeau. And in the world's greatest sinner, we're going to get into that. The sinning already came up. He peddled it because he knew that that was a term that Steve Allen said, the world's greatest sinner. So he wrote a song because he knew he could get a record deal or something. He wasn't just writing music for himself, he was writing music because he wanted to make money and live, as a musician. Like, good luck. He's the one who said, in order to be a musician, you have to sell your cock and your balls. Now, Zach, is that true? You're a musician.
Yeah, you got to sell the butthole too and every other remaining orifice.
No, that I know this famous rock star, and I said that to him when he was like 20, and he goes, "Gee, I thought I only had to sell my soul." So, anyways, what do you think, Simon? Why did you ask that question, and your thoughts on that idea? Was Frank over romanticizing his own motive description for being a musician and writing songs?
I think I want to push back against your description of what he was doing. I don't think he certainly made he was trying to sell what he was doing for sure, but I don't think he was designing his product to sell. I think he did what he wanted to do. I mean, if he'd wanted to do that, he would have never have got the bar band that became the mothers of invention to play such weird music. He could have done much more commercial stuff, as we know from many of his other works. It's all like, well, why did you spoil that commercial thing? The point is that the sabotage is the information, as he said at one point. So I don't think he was at all tailoring his music to his audience. I think that was a very, very small part of what he was doing. The reason I asked the question was more because well, I don't know if I want to say why I want. I'd like to hear what everybody thinks first, but then I'll come back and comment.
You mean
on
get people to respond first?
Yeah, just simply, was Frank Zappa a romantic? How do people respond to that? And then I'll.
You don't want us to know what's behind your eyes, son.
You don't want to know.
But I love that because it brought up a couple things designed to sell. I remember when Frank was saying, I had to sing Dynamo Hum 1,000,000 times so I could finance baby snakes. So it was almost like saying, I've got to do these routine things and play my music for the fans who are.
Yeah, but he didn't write Dynamo Hum specifically off the bat to make money.
Oh, come on. He wrote it for horny Jewish guys from Long Island. Go ahead, Zach.
I mean, isn't there an old saying, nobody went broke putting too much tits and ass in anything? I don't know. I mean, I think that Frank Zappa was a capital A artist, and all of us would agree on that. But I think it's no secret that as the 60s were coming and free love and experimentation, Frank definitely saw that the youth was more and more interested in controversy and experimentation and things that, if he wrote a lyric that maybe, got a bunch of bad press, there's no press that's really bad, people would still buy the record and it could be popular, and more taboo subjects might be, more along the line of what he could sing about, because, I mean, there were already enough love songs, and I think he said that himself.
Yeah, no, Zach, it's like Jewish Princess.
Right, but that's not to say that he wrote Jewish Princess just to sell records. I think we would all agree that there was, as he put it, a great political or sociological phenomenon that was going on that was worth writing about. The Dynamo Hum, because no one was talking about the groupies, but everyone knew it existed in the culture.
Yeah. No, the ADL tried to get Frank in trouble for saying a Jewish princess. Sandblasted zits in Titanic tits. That's some great songwriting. But he put Simon, great word. He pushed back on him and he says, I want a Jewish princess. I'm saying I want one. What do you think? I'm anti-Semitic. I'm saying I want one. But it's also this, there's two other things about selling is 200 Motels played in 4 cities in America when it premiered. Ann Arbor, Michigan was one of them. I was huge Zappa. We go into the big movie theater. I know exact movie theater. It's still there. And we walk out and go, Zappa sold out. We literally thought that having Flo and Eddie and all that was a sellout. And in retrospect, 200 Motels is the most unsold out rock film ever made. Frank literally did the traditional rock film with Baby Snakes later on and does Human Belonging music. You just have a band and you see some backstage antics. But 200 Motels is beyond the beyond. So that was funny how it changed back to Simon saying context. The context in 72, for me, 200 Motels was a sellout. For me now, it isn't. It's not at all a sellout. And then the other one is Paul Schrader, who wrote Taxi Driver, said, the role of the artist is to attempt to sell out, but fail. So that's like Andy saying, oh, Frank said all his songs were hits. I think all my songs are hits. Well, why would you say that if you're not wanting to write a hit? And you know that whole thing about Arthur Barrell and walking into the rehearsal when he heard his friend Christopher Krauss Ride Like the Wind, and he goes up to Frank and he goes, my friend wrote a hit song, it's called Ride Like the Wind, and Frank goes, I can do that. And he wrote like Teenage Wind within 10 minutes or something like that. You guys know. What is it, Tyler?
I literally played Ride Like the Wind on a gig last night. I had so much fun. That song rocks. I love Teenage Wind, but Christopher Cross is the man. That song's really good.
But is it true? Is Teenage Wind the song that Frank wrote when he says, I can do that in 10 minutes?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then what he spun Thundercat out of Teenage Wind. Okay, go ahead, Zach.
What's interesting is I do think that Frank thought that You Are What You Is was going to be a hit.
Especially with pop.
Yeah, I mean,
it's just that album is pop songwriting.
Exactly. Whereas I would say that 200 Motels is, well, the record company hasn't dropped me yet. Let's just have some fun with their money at their expense and see what happens.
But it is beyond art. It is an amazing.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. I mean,
well, no, what I'm saying in the context of us talking about, is he making it to get a hit or is he making it to be artistic? Or, I feel as if with You Are What You Is, maybe there was more of a concerted effort to actually try to have something chart. Whereas, I mean, 200 Motels is definitely a lot for the average suburban American viewer in 1972.
Oh, yeah, they don't know. But you got to admit, one of the greatest New York Times film critics said Frank Zappa's the Orson Welles of rock in his review of 200 Motels. Okay, Zach, you're a smarty pants rock star. You didn't answer Simon's real question. Is Frank a romantic?
Yes, 100%. 1,000%. I would even argue that maybe the reason why he didn't want to meet Igor Stravinsky was because he didn't want to destroy his romantic conception of what it would be like to interact with him.
Yeah. And we don't know. We don't know. They didn't want to meet him. We don't know.
Yeah. Well, also, I mean, I think I said this the last time we all spoke, Frank would take the most intimate and romantic parts of his melodies and then immediately, have to do something there to almost add a disclaimer. Watermelon and Easter Hay, there has to be the central scrutinizer bit before. Zappa would, it seems as if he's not the type of guy that would say, I've been doing this rock star shit for about 15 years now, and I'm feeling pretty sad, and this is how I feel.
Yeah.
That's not really how he would do it.
But
I don't know. There's also, in the Arthur Barrow book, apparently there was this piece of music that he wrote for Gail that they rehearsed a bunch of time that was really sweet, but it never got released. Huh?
Solitude.
Solitude. Yeah, I mean, isn't that kind of the answer to your question? Is that it was there? No?
Well, I wouldn't rate that particularly as romantic. I think that's sort of realistic rather than romantic, possibly. Because thank you for giving me space. You know, that's not the traditional conception of romantic, I think.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
like
my question would be more not so much romantic as in a sort of, sexual love romance, and as a broader sense of romantic, and maybe like romantic composers, sort of romantic sort of sense, as in poetry and so forth, as opposed to classic in the 18th century sense of classic.
Thank you, Simon, for reminding me, because I looked up the etymology on the word romantic. But that that thing about Gail is women run the world, but they let men think they run the world. If you believe that, I got some swap land. So here's romantic, a love affair as a theme is from the 60s. The word romantic, romance, is the adventure of a hero, a verse narrative. So that's the root of the word. But I think you're saying romantic in more like love affair as a theme, what you said, romantic literature. That's what you're referring to when you said romantic. What?
No, I'm not specifically, but I'll leave that in there as I mean, Zach has sort of alluded to that, but I'm using it in a more abstract sense. Abstract, I don't know, but the way in which classical music, let's say 18th century music, is very sort of tight, and you have Bach and Mozart and what have you, and it's then you suddenly move into Beethoven and Chopin, all that sort of, I'm using headline terms here, but you're moving into a much more expansive, much more sort of program music, where you're creating a world that is sort of speaking to an internal sort of world in a way that maybe classical music in the 18th century definition of it wasn't. So
because here's the
and
funny,
maybe also moving the other way into 21st century, then you've got sort of it's a much drier, much more sort of a modernist approach that's almost mathematical in its thinking, all the whole 12-tone business, serial music and all that. So romantic, I'm using romantic more in that 19th century sense of romantic, but also with other stuff tacked on. So don't feel constrained.
Yeah, because it's such a wide variety of things that went into the word romantic. Because I think that when you said it, idealized. So Frank was idealizing, saying, "Oh, I just write music for myself." Yeah, you have a blah, blah, blah. So here's the other thing, 1800s, romantic. No, the other root for the word romantic was verse narrative, adventure of a hero. But dig this one, vulgar language. It literally says in etymology that the word romance refers to vulgar language. So then I looked up vulgar, and it means common people, coarse, ill-bred, the mind of the herd, the gutter, the trail. It sounds like all the Zappa fans. So, I mean, it's funny you use that word romantic. Okay, Lewis, you're up. Is Frank a romantic?
I don't know how to answer that one. That's, yeah, I mean, when I hear the word romantic, I think of time period, and I think it's a difficult thing. The one thing I thought of while we were talking about this was, hang on, I just had it here. Here we go. Okay, so the original lyrics to what am I trying to going back again to see that girl I left behind me, I'm so happy I could cry. What am I? I'm trying to think. He changed the words. The original version of
Take your clothes off when you
thank you. Take your clothes off when you danced. I couldn't, my brain is it's freezing here. So the original lyrics to Take Your Clothes Off When You Dance are the epitome of a romantic teenage love song. I'm so happy I could cry. And the fact that he used the music is exactly the same. But when he changed the lyrics to "You can take your clothes up when you dance," I'm not sure if I'm hitting what Simon is talking about here.
Yeah.
But the idea of romantic, I think of like, back to the Broadway show tunes business, like eliciting a tear from an audience.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean, basically?
In a sense.
Yeah, in that sense, I think Zappa was exactly the opposite of that. I think he wanted to, make you cry in a way that was the antithesis of what we think of when we think of, quote, romantic.
Okay.
I'm not sure I'm getting at what your question is, but
that's the good thing about your question, Simon. It's an open question.
Yeah.
It's not important to answer the question. You're up next, Andreas, but it's also, if you read that little thing I sent a link to, is Frank goes, "Oh, I love this Bartok song so much it almost made me cry."
Yeah. No,
Like,
Bartok. I
I
have to
mean,
add one thing before you let me go. One thing I have to just add. You talked about Dynamo Hum for Baby Snakes. Actually, if I'm not mistaken, he said all the Dynamo Hum money paid for the London Symphony fiasco.
whatever. Yeah.
And I just have to point this out before we quit. I am now involved with a classical clarinetist, and we're trying to put together a performance of at least the first movement of Moe and Herm's Vacation,
Yeah.
which is basically a clarinet concerto, and it's one of Zappa's most incredible pieces. And it was so badly done by the LSO that it just blows my mind. I have the score, and I've studied the score for like 20 or
And
30
are you
years.
in touch with David Ocker?
Yes.
Good.
It's not David. It's another clarinetist, the local a guy in the Tucson Symphony who we're working on getting the Tucson Symphony to do at least the first movement.
Right.
And it will require a tremendous amount of rehearsal time because the London Symphony basically just butchered it, that thing, and it deserves a great performance. That to me is what Zappa's music is really all about. Okay, so I'll leave it at that.
That's good. And Simon, it is a great question because it is more open-ended. So Andreas, you're up.
There's an interview, I think, from 1968 with Frank where they talk about also, he talks with Frank about the Sgt. Pepper album of the Beatles, because he made his kind of parody. And I think Kofsky was in the mood, yeah, he don't like the Beatles. And then they talked about Within You, Without You, and Love Can Change the World. And Frank said surprisingly, yeah, of course, love can change the world, but only if you are really deep into it, if you know exactly what love is. And then Kofsky asked him about what about the hate, and if you hate the society. He said, yeah, go to the society you hate and love the shit out of it. And later he had an interview where it was on German TV. It's a short, you can find it on YouTube, from 1976, where he says his idea of a good time is everyone has mental health. And he ends it with, that's the dream I'm after, everyone mental health. And then in 1978, there is also where he was in Austria and was interviewed, and somebody asked him, "Are you romantic?" And he says, "Of course I am a romantic guy. Are you kidding me?"
Did you know that, Simon?
No, I don't think I did know
You
that.
mean Frank said that when they asked him, "Are you romantic?"
Yeah, and he said, "Of course I'm a romantic guy. Are you kidding me?" It's
Wow.
like it's in the, I think you find it on YouTube. It's what this
Was he saying that and was
Rosa
sarcastic?
Hadolica, a guy. It was in 1978 with a Cadillac extravaganza, and there is very short where he's smoking this Mozart Neapolitana, it's called. It's a cookie, and I think Mozart rolled it himself.
Oh yeah, that's great. But it's also Frank doing these stupid Beatle and Allman Brothers songs at the end of his life. It's like, give me a break. Norwegian Wood, give me a break. That was such a waste, in my opinion. But That's who Frank was. He wanted to make fun of shit. Okay, Tyler, you're up. Is Frank a romantic?
Once again, Gerry, I have to. Norwegian Wood, that's a classic, bro. Don't stop hating on all these great tunes, Gerry.
No, I don't hate the song, but would you do you want to
I
go
know.
to a Zappa song concert and see
No,
Frank?
I get you. If I was
I wanna
alive in
see-
1988 and saw that concert, I'd probably be like, why aren't you playing, Drowning Witch,
your own
dude?
song.
Yeah.
It was very funny. I remember it.
Oh, actually, yeah. Sorry, we have
It's
somebody who
like
saw it.
now
that
when
can-
the Zappa band, the official Zappa cover band, does tied to the whipping post, and at the end, Bobby Martin goes, "And Frank Zappa will never die." I'm like, oh God, give me a fucking break. Okay, Tyler, is Frank a romantic?
Now it's been a long time since I was in a music history class, but I remember some of the characteristics of the romantic period. It's like being very individual, right? Being into like nature, using nature as an influence. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Simon, but those
I
are,
wasn't thinking of that in particular, but
didn't you mention like the romantic period?
yeah, I
But-
did.
Okay.
I did.
This is the beauty of language. We think words work. And when you go, it was Frank a romantic, what an amazing question in just a few
Yeah.
words. And then it leads to all this other insight because
Yeah.
we're trying to figure out what the word means. Well, hold
That's
on.
why I didn't want to
Let's-
identify it too
Oh,
much.
Zach can go. Zach,
Go ahead.
please, save me.
I just wanted to quickly add, Lewis posted "Oh No" as the response to "All You Need Is Love," and I think if we were to look at the lyrics and see how the lyrics are about, oh no, this romance, this love, this doesn't exist, but then you listen to all the interviews where Ruth Underwood talks about how "Oh No" is the most beautiful melody she's ever heard, and it resonated with her in a romantic sense to just be so in love with this melody. I mean, you almost have to ask yourself, maybe we should try to not listen to a Zappa piece with our eyes,
Right.
because there's real emotion in there too.
Right. And both pieces are in 7 too. They're very related.
Yeah.
And it
Sorry,
is-
I didn't mean to interrupt you, Tyler.
No, but
I
it
just
is
thought
Frank.
about
Please.
It's Frank responding to his environment. Is his environment is dictating, and you are what you hate is what Bob Goldthwait turned. You create what you resist. Bob Goldthwait, the comedian's a huge Zappa fan, and that's it. We are what we hate in the long run, in a lot of ways, not completely. But go ahead, Tyler. You're on.
I mean, he was everything and
Yeah.
also nothing.
Yeah.
Is that to
Ooh.
try hard?
Oh, how's Zen?
True Zen saying,
Yeah.
nothing is what I want.
Yeah.
Frank, that's between here and nothingness. No, that's pretty good. You mean Frank was everything and nothingness?
Yeah. Well, the point is he used everything. He had everything in there. You can find every emotion in there.
Yeah.
And it comes out as it's nothing. It's just him.
Yeah.
Whatever.
That's I
stupid.
that Italian Zappa scholar, and he goes, when I listen to Frank, I disappear. And I was like, what? Because my friend told me the function of music is to hypnotize people to be themselves. And I'm like, what does that mean? Because we take the music and do what we want with it. It doesn't matter what the musician intended. This kid came up to me at Santa Monica Civic, and he said, when Frank said, I start with a lump of grass, he was talking about pop. And I was like, no, he wasn't. But the kid wanted to believe that. And I didn't want to dispute it because that's the users of content. Okay, now I think we got Andy's up. Is Frank a romantic?
Well, I honestly feel like maybe we all have different definitions of romantic, so it seems like we're dancing around this question from various angles. From a purely musical standpoint, I don't hear anything romantic about Frank if you talk in terms of the romantic era of like Debussy and Brahms and what have you. So but musically, no, but I don't think that's what you were asking about. I do think that Frank had a tendency to downplay his own emotional involvements and his heartfelt moments and feelings. But I think just the fact that the guy got married when he was like, what, 20, 21, whatever, his first marriage, he got married in the early 60s when he was quite young. And we tend to gloss over that. This was a young guy who fell in love and got married when he was too young to even really get married. So I think that there's a certain romantic inside of him during all of that. And then when he, in his own autobiography, he said when he met Gail, he said, "Don't laugh." He puts that in the books. He says, "I fell in love." He said, "I don't laugh. I fell in love." So he kind of distances himself from his own emotions.
Frank said wait, make that clear. Frank said, "Don't laugh to you, my reader, in this book. I fell in love." He's kind of laying it on the.
I'm pretty sure I'm quoting it pretty correctly. Correct me if I'm wrong, Simon. You remember that quote where he says, "Don't laugh."
About right. Yeah.
But then he turned into the guy who wrote, "I sit and laugh at fools in love. There is no such thing as love, knowing
Right.
this thing up above today." And that kind of became his scowling Zappa character. But I think down deep, the guy believed in love and he fell in love and he got married. He was married most of his life, but he got laid all the time too. So there's that.
Not all the time, but probably a lot. Okay, Zach.
I completely agree with what Andy is saying, and the way I always interpreted that era of the Mothers of Invention when he would have lyrics like that is, I'm against this consumerized capitalistic view of love that exists to sell records because it's not an authentic emotion, because this is what people really feel. This is the gritty emotion of being lonely, or the things that Frank would express in his lyrics.
Yes, I agree. I think that song "Ain't Got No Heart" is more like an anti-love song, not an anti-love song.
Exactly. Yes, completely agree.
Yeah. Now, Frank wrote beautiful, nice music, and he also wrote not nice and ugly music. So he sort of wants to say this line, which I think is over romanticizing. I hate love songs. No, you don't. You love them. He just needed to say that for some reason because he wanted to play the role of who he was appearing to be, the alternative kind of every. In fact, one of my favorite moments ever was Frank was on a radio show during the PMRC, which stands for Premenstrual Republican Cunts, PMRC.
That's great, Gerry. This will get this taken off YouTube. Thanks for that.
Gerry, what does KCRW stand for?
Keep college radio white. So now I lost my train of thought. Oh, and the woman, Frank goes, if everybody was listening to the lyrics of songs, and 80% of songs are love songs, then why isn't everybody loving everyone else? And a woman called up, and this was the beauty of talk radio when it started. A woman called up and says, Frank, that's because most love songs on the radio are about puppy love. It's not real love. So that was a good point because Frank was singing about love just because he was saying different things than, I love you. Go ahead, Andreas. You were going to add something.
I thought about, because I think it's well known that he didn't like it that somebody at his house from his family said making love. He hates to say making love. I think he hated it because love was something very, very special for him. And making love is a wonderful activity which pleases mostly your ego. Maybe you can make your partner think that you do it only for him, but in the end, it's just for you. So don't call it making love. It's a wonderful activity, but I think love is really maybe even bigger. Like I said before with Komsky, Kowski, the interview, love the shit out of the society that you hate, and all this stuff. I think love it's so big he didn't want to talk much about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's really huge because Fialka, I did a podcast with Henning, and he's an amazing creature. Could spend a lot of good time with Frank, and he made one of the best ZAPPA. I mean, why can't ZAPPA documentaries be as good as Pete Fialka? And it's free on YouTube. And he says, what is beyond love? I mean, that to me is Frank inventing, in McLuhan tradition, invent new questions and new metaphors. Whoever said, what is beyond love? I want to reach love, but what is beyond love? We don't even have any standard or like proto thing, like, well, what is beyond love? Who even asked that question? But Simon, that was a great new question. And we don't have a lot of time, but I wanted to jump into that very thing.
Can I just say what I was going to say about that?
Please, Simon. Yeah, because you can wrap it up. We never you didn't get to react to your own question, react to the reactions, but whatever you want. Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, just on love songs, I think that's a genuine remark on his part that he hates love songs, because love songs in general are very formulaic and cheesy. So he's not going to like that as a genre, and he didn't devote much attention to discussing about the intimacies of relationships, because that when I asked the question, was he romantic, that wasn't really what the focus of my question was. I was thinking more in terms of his sensibility, if you like. Something struck me very much in the notes to the Hot Rats box set, where Ian Underwood is talking about Frank's soloing and saying that for him was the heart of it, was Frank's solo, when he was playing a solo and improvising, and in that moment that was the heart of the music for him. And I just hear in his soloing, and not just in his soloing, many times with his music, there'll be a really harsh piece, and then he just sweetens it somehow.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a leavening, sweetening thing that's in there to sort of rescue it somehow. And this morning I happened to be listening to Ancient Armaments, and which I hadn't heard the unedited version. So I just said, Spotify, play me that. And it just played the version that's on the Halloween set, I think, which is the uncut version. But you can hear why he edited it down to what he did when he released it originally as a single, and it's because there's a sort of certain sensibility, almost a kind of I'm trying to avoid the word yearning, because it isn't really a yearning as such, but there's a sort of deep connection with things there. That's what I really meant about the romanticism, and I think that applies to the way he looked at the world too. I never forgotten when he ran for president, or said he was going to run for president. I actually asked him why he was doing it, given his cynicism about politics and so forth, and he just said, I still believe that the right person in the right place can make a difference. Now that to me is a very romantic view of things, and not in a negative way. I'm not dissing that in the slightest. I mean, I think, we can always take our clothes off. There will come a time when we can all take our clothes off when we dance. I think that's actually a kind of sort of twisted prequel to Imagine. It's sort of, he really does believe that if we did all love each other, and if it did all come together and we did all have mental health, we could. But whether that's going to happen.
That's the human condition, is that we don't. And who invented mental health? You can't prove you're sane unless you have discharge from a mental hospital. So then
discharge party hats is sort of what you're going to say.
Yeah, so people think, who invented all these mental diseases? Because blah blah blah. So anyways, we just got a couple more quick round robin questions. And the question was brilliant, Simon, too, because Love of My Life is a love song, and that's a straight love song. People have that played at their wedding. I think it's a great song.
I did.
You did too? Yeah.
My first wedding, which ended in divorce, so it didn't work out too well.
So here, Simon, we'll start with you with this question. We got on this topic of love. Oh no, I don't believe. The whole song about love. Oh no, what a song. Do you really think it can be told? That's the question. So you put in the context you want. Do you think it really can be told? You're up, Simon.
Hang on, something stopped. You're all frozen.
Yeah.
Whoop. Sorry, there was a glitch there.
Okay, that's all right. Again? The question is, Do you think it really can be told?
Love?
It is the meaning of love. I think, right? Is the meaning of love?
I think if it can be told, it can only be told through music. I don't think, well, you experience it, but you can't tell it, not in words. You might be able to express it through a guitar solo.
Non-verbal.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, Tyler, you're up. Do you think it really can be told?
I'll be brief because I probably got to call it in the next 5 to 10 minutes. So, yes.
Yes. Okay.
Hey.
I'm sorry, who?
Andy, yeah, you're up.
Well, I think this is obvious, but I think that song is just a direct response to the Beatles' All You Need Is Love. And I think that he's just calling out the Beatles and saying, where do you get off? And I don't think that you are experts on this. And I think that this is a panacea that you're trying to sell us. And so I think that that's what it's all about, that can the Beatles tell us all about love? Do you think it can be told? And are you the guys who are going to define love and how it can save the world?
Exactly.
That's why you taught this shit for 29 years. Okay.
That's right.
Andreas, do you think it really can be told?
I think he told it in all his albums.
Yeah. It can be told.
Not in the lyrics.
Okay, let me make this clear. Tyler, we got to end really soon.
What?
5-10 minutes-ish.
Okay,
yeah.
fine. Okay, Lewis, do you think
Actually, I can affirmatively say that Zappa answers the question himself. If you listen carefully, he goes, do you really think it can be told? And his guitar goes, no. Am I right? I mean, think about it. Do you really think it can be told? And the guitar goes, no.
That's nonverbal communication. That's good. Back to T.S. Eliot, he says, when I talk to you, I got to use words. And that's not true. You don't have to use words to talk to people.
But I've always felt that when I listen to it, the guitar literally says no.
Yeah. Okay, Zach.
I'm gonna say yes. Most of the time through nonverbal expression, visual, musical, interpretational. If we are going to say verbal, for me, the closest I've seen is probably Joni Mitchell, Blue.
Nice.
I think that's the best representation using words with musical accompaniment of expressing the emotion of love.
Yeah. And to think, my friend interviewed Joni like half a year ago at her house. It's like no one's really sussed out with Joni what happened when she got up on stage and performed with the Mothers. Like, why isn't that known? You know, that should be, she's still alive and articulate. Why isn't that been discussed deeper? Or
Gerry, it is your mission to find Joni Mitchell and ask her.
The same with Linda Ronstadt, Van Morrison. It's endless, all those, you know. So we'll close out, and I really appreciate your time and energy. The present day Zappa Zoomer refuses to die. So let's keep up this tradition and have, you know, celebrate Frank's birthday every year. Thanks for Tyler for putting this up on our YouTube channel. And it's funny because we'll end with one last round robin question, but it's in the movie It's a Wonderful Life, you know, everybody watches this at Christmas time, Jimmy Stewart film. He says, no person who has friends is a failure. And, you know, Frank says, I'm a failure, but not a miserable failure. It's really funny because I think that's what Zappa is all about, is the camaraderie we have in celebrating music together and being able to talk about it. So I appreciate all you all's friendship, and especially through, you know, we could have a Barry Manilow Zoom every year, but instead we do Frank. And oh no, we could have a Neil Diamond one, you know, and I actually asked Frank once, you ever see the picture of Neil Diamond and he's sitting next to the drum and the drum says the Mothers? You know, this is documented. The Mothers backed Neil Diamond once.
What?
And I asked Frank, why was that? And he goes, because he hired us. Could you imagine? So it's back to this thing about legacy. Frank going, he doesn't, want to be remembered. And you know, seeing this Sean Lennon thing this morning was amazing because he said the world is the custodian of the Beatles and John Lennon. And we are the custodian of Frank Zappa in a lot of ways. And I love this line, we run errands for our ancestors. So what is the Zappa legacy? Is it to be ignored, or for you individually, just to close out? We'll start with you, Andy. What is the Zappa legacy in a few words?
Well, first I'll say that when Frank was asked about being remembered, he says it's not important to be remembered, and I don't care. I don't think that
There you go. That's good.
I don't think he ever said I don't want to be remembered. But I think to sum it up for me, the big bullet points for Frank is you'll be absolutely free only if you want to be, and you should be digging it while it's happening because it just might be a one-shot deal.
There you go.
Those are the two takeaways.
That is some good quoting, dude. I love that. Okay, Andreas.
Oh, I think his legacy, it's I think he knew, I don't know how to explain it. I have no words now. He's not being important is also something if you understand something in the universe. And I think in the moment you understand that you are not important and they don't have to remember you, that this becomes important. For me, he's like, I don't know, if you look somewhere and you have someone who says you have to live in the now and all this, and you have to, with your ego, and you go down. I hear this everything in Broken Hearts Are for Assholes and in Instrumental. There is a knowledge that was before him and after him, and he's like, he as if he knew that he's a cop, but he's a nice cop, if people like him. Everything is happening all the time. He's repeating something that's bigger than him, that was before and after, and we just love him. We celebrate him. That's okay.
Yeah. And that's funny because Andreas, your videos are long and they're filled with the talking dog. Like this is a dog talking, but that one video you just put out for 30 minutes, there's no talking and it's just this kind of graphics. And I thought that you did both ends of the spectrum there. That was cool.
At the end is a little piece where he's talking to Nicholas Lominsky and asking him, and Lominsky says, no, I don't contact. And Zappa says, please.
Please. Okay, Louis.
What I put at the end. This was so nice. Because
that's good. Yeah, there is a little, and there's some printed text throughout.
Yeah, and I like to hear him, please.
Please, he's begging.
Asking him to conduct now ionization, or ionization.
Hear my plea. Okay, Louis, you're up.
Yeah, some of you guys have spent a lot more time with him, but I spent 6 hours with Frank in 1989, and we talked about classical music for 5 of those 6 hours, and his face just lit up when we would talk about things like the Lutoslawski String Quartet and stuff like that. I know that his main love was the classical side of him, and when I say that, he did Dynamo Hum to finance the LSO, that Boulez album, for example, Perfect Stranger. That is a really fine performance of what he had in his head for that classical stuff. And I just wish more Zappa fans, I'm not speaking about us in this group, because we all appreciate that stuff. But most Zappa fans don't know this stuff exists. Yeah. And I think that if Frank had a choice, he would say, listen to Perfect Stranger, where Boulez pulls out the most brilliant performances of his great music, including pieces like Dupre's Paradise and whatnot. That's the side of Zappa that I think needs to be appreciated.
Beautiful, Louis. And you've heard it in the past. Louis got to play a Zappa piece for Nadia Boulanger, and that's
Mhm.
been an experience. Okay, Zach, you're up. Simon, and then Tyler, you can close us out.
What was the question again?
The
Sorry.
legacy.
No,
You
it's
know, it's
basically what
interesting.
is Frank's legacy for you? And the whole thing is, well, Andy cleared it up. It's not important to me, and I don't care. Is that Frank over romanticizing? Did he really care about what people thought, or just it's basically what's Frank's legacy for you?
I mean, for me, art is immortal. It's always going to exist. It's some of my favorite music in the world. That's never going to change as long as we have the ability to, listen to music freely and, there's a format in which we can hear it. In terms of Frank's legacy, I would actually say this has been a very interesting year for Zappa world sort of infiltrating pop culture, especially on the internet. I I don't see a lot of young people typically listening to Zappa and big cities and stuff like that, but there's some clips that there are now all these Instagram accounts, Zappa clips, Zappa this and that, and sometimes at least this there's the master. There some of the clips about, there's the one with with John Lofton, there's the one where he talks about, we are the world. I mean, they were getting millions and millions of views on Instagram, and I would wake up and I'd get 15 people who have never heard a Zappa song in their entire lives saying, "Wow, look at this. Isn't this amazing?" And now I meet random people, and 10, 15 years ago, if I mentioned Frank Zappa, it would either be, oh yeah, the song about the Jewish princess, titties and beer, or oh yeah, he named his kids this or that. Now it's, I saw this interview he did. He was really smart,
Yeah.
which is incredible because for my whole life I've never that's something brand new that's happened this year, and I think that's very optimistic and also cool that this weird era of Zappa the talking head on the news expressing his philosophical beliefs without needing a song or lyrics to do it. I mean, that's definitely a cool development, and
All one big note. He said it. His press kits, snazzy
mhm.
corporate executive, his interviews, his music, everything was part of the big note. Okay, Simon, you're up, and then Tyler. Thank you, Zach.
I think for me personally, the legacy is just the constant surprise that almost every time I listen to his music, it's constantly fresh. There's always something that that reminds me of what I first got out of it. Just the completely unexpected moment that turned out to be absolutely plausible and worthwhile. And the same thing goes for his interviews and the way he talks. And I'm not surprised at all that he's now, becoming understood or recognized as a smart guy, because he certainly was, and he had this way with words that he did with music. Just an ability to step out of the cliche. The moment you see a cliche, he's outside it before you even knew it. That for me is a hugely important part of what I get out of his work. But I think his legacy, I don't think he really cared about it, because he cast a cold eye on death, as Yeats put it. He knew that's it. So why should he care? But his legacy will be what those things are, that people will find his music in the same way as they find Stravinsky or they find Beethoven or whatever.
Right.
People will discover it if there's something left to sit on, which is a moot point at the moment, but
Yeah, that's that line that Zach almost referred to as when on Ruben and the Jets, if there's anything left to sit on. That was great. Okay, Tyler, wrap it up, dude. Thanks again for hosting us.
Of course, yeah. Well, everybody has had such beautiful things to say. I can only speak sort of from my experience, which is that I still feel like I'm just getting to know him, like we just still met.
Yeah.
I'm so honored to, talk to all of you guys who have done, were friends with him and knew him and worked for him, or have done amazing things, amazing writings and stuff like that. I talk a little bit about him myself on my own YouTube channel, and I'm, I feel like I'm just beginning a relationship with him. So he's everything to me, you know. I've
Well,
been a
you
fan
set
for
the
more
bar,
than
Tyler. Your
I appreciate
videos
it.
are like the high level of Zappa tutorials.
Thank you. Yeah, I just, really love it. That's all I can really say.
And I know Kahlil's been here in spirit, but check out the new rant I just put on my channel, Gerry Fialka Archives, and Kahlil plays Markson's Chicken at Venice West on the Vibes. Beautiful rendition. So I'll close out with this is Aldous Huxley in the Brave New World. And they're talking about optimizing happiness. And Aldous wrote, but I don't want comfort. I want God. I want poetry. I want real danger. I want freedom. I want goodness. I want sin. So there it goes. The world's greatest sinner. As a sinner, he's a winner. Thank you for making me feel like a winner on this Zapatista Salon. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Gerry.
You for inviting.
Thanks,
Thank you all.
everybody.
See you,
Thank
everybody.
you.